everyone. Today you're going to be learning about velocity, which is our fancy word for speed. Velocity measures how quickly an object travels, or how far an object moves in a certain amount of time. So when we're talking about velocity, we're actually talking about the relationship between distance and time. This is apparent in our units for velocity. You're probably most familiar with kilometers per hour, as this is what we use in cars. As you can see, the unit is made up of a distance and a time, and shows the relationship between them. So if we take a car travelling at a speed of 100 km per hour as an example, this tells us that every kilometre or every hour it travels 100 kilometres. So after 1 hour, it would have travelled 100 kilometres. After 4 hours, it would have travelled 4 times that. So it would have travelled 400 kilometres. Remember though that scientists don't like to use kilometres or hours. We like to use metres and seconds. So our unit for velocity is meters per second. Meters per second. In short, this can be written as m-s or ms with a little -1 at the top. So that shows us it's meters per second. This formula shows us that relationship, that velocity is equal to distance per time, or distance divided by time. To calculate velocity, you need to know the distance travelled in meters and the time taken in seconds. Since velocity measures distance per time, we simply divide the distance by the time. This will tell us the velocity in meters per second, or meters divided by seconds. Let's do an example. Here's an NCEA style question with achieved marks. When answering NCEA questions, you need to show your full working out, no matter how easy the question seems. So first thing I'm going to do is highlight the relevant information. So Amy is competing in the athletics at school. She comes second in the 400-meter sprints with a time of 64 seconds. Calculate Amy's velocity. So we've been given distance, we've been given time, and we want to find out the velocity. So the first thing we need to do is write down the formula that shows that relationship. So velocity equals distance divided by time. We then simply substitute in the values. So distance was 400 meters, the time was 64. So to get our answer, we need to do 400. Okay. 400 divided by 64 gives us our answer of 6.25. And we need to make sure we include units. So since it's velocity, it's meters per second. Now that was a fairly straightforward question, so we'll try something a little bit harder. Now you may have noticed the little triangles in the formulas. These triangles mean change in. So let's do a question that uses that. Alright, pause the video and see if you can figure out the answer to this question. Alright, so for this question we're working out Ash's velocity as he ran, which is this part of the journey. So he started at 50 meters and ended up at 300 meters away from the school. And that journey took him 40 seconds to run. So similar process, we start off with writing the formula. V equals change in distance divided by change in time. But now we have a separate step because we need to calculate that change in distance. So to work out the change in, you do the final distance minus the initial distance. So in this case, it's 300 divided by 300 minus 50. Then we substitute in our time as well. So 300 minus 50 gives us 250. Divide by 40. Get out our calculator. Clear. 250 divided by 40. Again, 6.25. Because I'm not very creative with my numbers. Alright. And again, our units is meters per second. Now, when calculating the change in something, it is really, really important that you always do final minus the initial. Now, that may have seemed really obvious for the question we just did, but later on in this topic, it isn't always straightforward, and you're going to get the wrong answer if you do it the wrong way around. So change in is final minus initial. Alright, time for more practice on your own so that you can become masters of this.